Good morning. Welcome to Cameron+Deanna. My name is Cameron. Today we are going to be chatting March of the Machine, the latest Magic the Gathering set. And I am in a new White Void. And so Deanna and I have moved. We got a new place, and so still kind of in process of everything. So hopefully things go smoothly as we do this today. But should there be any chaos, we'll blame it on that. But yeah, I'm really excited about today. It's been a minute since I've been able to stream because of the moving stuff. But then also really excited about March of the Machine. It looks like a very cool set. And so what we're going to be doing is kind of talking through these cards in the context of Commander, which is the casual format where you have a commander that leads your party. And then you can only have one of every card in the deck, things like that. So it's, consistency can be more difficult than it can be in a normal deck. So, and then as we go through it, I like knowing what to buy. And so we're going to actually be adding cards to this handy dandy spreadsheet that I put together. And so what this is it's all of my commander decks. And then it is all of the cards that I want to add to those decks. And so as well as so we have like the commander name, what colors it is. Some of them are misspelled. And then it is like the general theme of the deck. And so we're going to go through and kind of take some time as we're putting stuff together. This one is probably going away. We're going to have to take some time. We'll talk a little bit about the decks and a little bit about cards as we go through them. But the goal here, from my perspective, isn't to by any means buy all of these cards. But the idea is I want to keep track of cards that would be good in the deck so that when I go to buy cards for those decks, I can just say, oh, yeah, these types of things. Remember the cards that came out. Especially since I don't tend to buy Magic cards often, every set. I'm not buying cards to add to my decks. I typically wait several sets and then we'll get stuff. And so there's cards on here from Innistrad. Looks like that's probably about when I started doing this. And so yeah, and so that's kind of the vibe, is finding out what it is that's going to be good for the decks and then adding them in. More generally focused on what would be fun. What's up, Lina? How are you doing this morning? Yeah, so then kind of going through and figuring out what all would make sense. So these are the cards. Like I said, March of the Machines is the latest set. It's all about the Phyrexian, this thing, which is this infectious ooze that's taken over the galaxy or the multiverse. You're good? I'm doing well. I'm super excited to be back streaming. Feels like it's been a minute and it's a little all over the place as I adjust my camera because I don't like where it is. But we're getting settled in and still getting stuff moved. But really excited to be back on chatting with people. So, yeah. And so we're going to chat through, and we'll chat through mechanics and chat through stuff. We're not going to necessarily try to talk about every single card. But we're going to talk through the ones that I think seem exciting. We're going to start with battles. So this is the Invasion of Ravnica. So this is a new card type. It's a siege. When it enters the battlefield, you give it to an opponent. They protect it. And then players have to attack it to get rid of its defense. Once its defense goes to 0, it transforms. Volume is a bit low. Well, let me fix that. Thank you for calling that out. Hopefully that's a little bit better. I just cranked it on my end. And so, once you meet the condition, it'll flip better. Perfect. And so it'll flip. Some of them flip into creatures. Some of them flip into spells, things like that. And so that's the idea. And so Invasion of Ravnica isn't necessarily one that I'm anticipating in any of my decks. When it enters, you destroy non-land permanent that isn't exactly 2 colors. And then when you cast a spell that's exactly 2 colors, look at the top 6 cards of your library a card with exactly 2 colors from among them. Put it in your hand. Put the rest onto the battlefield under your or the bottom of your library in random order. Yeah, it's cool. I really like this art, but I don't think I'm going to be putting this in any of my decks. We specifically want to be paying attention to the battles that are Esper, which is white, black, or blue, because of my Camise deck. And so we'll talk more about that once we find one. But here we have a Convoke, so your creatures help you cast the spell. Basically, instead of paying mana, you can tap a creature that either shares a color or is anything. And so Convoke spells are really powerful because they can be free. So let's see. Exile a target creature. Not worth it for 6. Plain Cycling is nice, though. Angelic Intervention. Protection colorless or from the color of your choice. Okay, so here we have Elspeth. Again, fantastic art. I love Archangel Elspeth's design. Let's see. We can create soldiers. We can put counters on creatures. Give them flying and return non-land permanent cards with mana value 3 or less from the graveyard to the battlefield. Like this is, if anything, this is probably going in Hamza just because it says +1/+1 counters. I don't necessarily think that I have a good place for this in any of my decks. It could fit also in Atraxa. It's not necessarily really what that deck's trying to do either, but I think this is going to be a card that if I opened it, I would put it in a deck, but I don't necessarily have the desire to go and get one. See, backup is going to be pretty interesting because of the Hamza deck. Let me go to, spelling. Let's take a look at Hamza. So Hamza is a spell cost 1 less to cast for each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it. Creatures you cast cost 1 less for each creature you control the +1/+1 counter. Good morning. Thought it was just you. Sounds better now. Okay, I'm glad that, I normally have the sound balanced against the music, but obviously there's no music today. So I say obviously there could be music, but I just didn't run anything. So glad it's better. So Hamza is cheaper if our creatures have a counter, and then Hamza makes other creatures cheaper for each creature that has a counter. So it's powerful in the sense that it really reduces the cost of things, and so it wants every creature to have at least 1 counter. So backup's really good for that. Don't necessarily think it's going to be this one in specific, but if I had lowered something before saying anything, I did that yesterday. I was watching Drew. And at one point his mic went out, and I was just like, oh no. Like I was thinking I was having issues with audio because, again, I'm getting set up on the new system. And I was like, oh no, did my speaker go out? What all happened? And then eventually the other music came back on because it had been quiet, and I was like, oh no. So I had to let him know. Okay, and let's see. So we talked about that. Archangel, flying, first strike, lifelink. That's fine. We don't need that. Cut short. This is interesting because it's a free destroy target planeswalker or tapped creature. Not going to make the cut. Dusk Legion Duelist. This is probably going in Hamza. Whenever 1 or more +1/+1 are put on it, draw a card. It triggers only once each turn. Legion. Gary, how's your day going? Is that it? And so anything to kind of draw cards in that deck. And then we have Elish Norn. If a source an opponent controls would deal damage to you, or a permanent you control, that source's controller loses 2 life. And unless they pay 1, sack 3 creatures, then you flip it. It flips into the Argent Etchings. Incubate 5 times. An incubate token is a generic artifact with counters on it equal to the number. Then you can pay 2 to transform it normally. Obviously, then it goes transform all incubate. So basically, this gives you 5 2/2s. Creatures you control get ++1 and gain double strike until end of turn. Destroy all permanents except for artifacts, lands, and Phyrexians. then you flip it back over. Probably not going anywhere. You had been streaming without your mic for almost a year, so your sound wasn't the best. And now that you have a mic, you're checking all the time. Everybody had a webcam mic. It wasn't. Yeah. I've had that before where even with an actual mic, my computer like defaulted to the other one. And I was very confused why the audio quality was so much different. And I just like didn't think about it until like midway through stream. I think somebody said something and I was like, oh yeah, that'll do it. Day's going good. Been up since 2. Ooh. Woke up and couldn't go back to sleep. Dude, I'm sorry. That's no fun. Because one thing if you like are intending to stay up or get up at that time, but like when you just like wake up and can't go back to sleep, that's always rough. Let's see. When this creature dies, put its counters on target creature you control. Nah, don't really need that. Interest battlefield exile 1 target creature. Or artifact you control. Return it to the battlefield and it's going to be in the next end step. Without flash, I'm not huge on that compared to Restoration Angel. Okay, we have Heliod the Radiant Dawn. One of the big jerks of Magic. He enters the battlefield, return target enchantment card that isn't a god from your graveyard to your hand, and then you can pay 3 in Phyrexian to transform him to Heliod the Warped Eclipse. Super cool art. Spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each card your opponents have drawn this turn. I don't think I have a place for this, which is crazy because it's like the spells you can make cast spells as though they had flash. I don't really have a good home for this. This could go in Camise, except we don't really use enchantments that much. You're up because your cat woke you up to go outside. Oh no, you can't let him out because you have to take. Oh, I'm sorry. I feel like that's like something that like we don't have animals, and that I appreciate about not having animals. That's because we were on the 3rd floor of an apartment building, and so it was like if we would have had such like a dog that needed to get up, it would have been a huge pain to get up, get them out, and that kind of stuff. See, dies, incubate creatures. Okay, we have another. I don't think this is a specifically interesting. Yeah, we don't care about that one. Battle of Dominaria. Let me tilt my head sideways. Probably not. This one is, we'll talk about this one because I like this one at one. He woke up around 6 a.m. And got up at 8 to, oh, and you got up at 8 to code. Nice. Hey, yeah, happy that you could be here. What are you coding? Okay, so Invasion of Gabakan. So when it enters the battlefield, look at the target opponent's hand. You may exile a non-land card from it. For as long as it remains exiled, its owner may play it. The spell, a spell cast this way costs 2 more to cast. Then we can flip it to Light Shield Array. Beginning of your end step, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature that attacked this turn. Then sacrifice it to give creatures I control hexproof and indestructible. So this is perfect for Hamza. Because it's going to just put counters on stuff every turn. We just got to find a good attack, and then it'll put counters on every turn. It's easy to flip with only 3 defense. Need to do a portfolio for next month. It's a final project for one of your coding courses. Oh, nice. Hope that course goes well. But yes, this is perfect for Hamza. It gives counters. It saves us from some removal. It's easy to transform. And the fact that we get a counter every turn on everything that attacked is really good. Set your library for an aura, god, or demigod. We don't really care about this one. I just want to show off this art. Ifara looking awesome here, smashing things. And then when another enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card. Like, that is so good if you can have an enchantment deck that uses that. So we don't, so we're moving on. But let's see, double strike. People in chat, what are you playing? What are you watching? Had the chance to go see the Mario movie last week. It was super fun. Also saw the D&D movie, I guess 2 weekends ago. And then been pretty busy with moving, so I haven't had a good chance to play games. I did play a little bit of Pokemon last night, but haven't had a huge chance to game with all the stuff that's going on. Enters battlefield with this. This enters the battlefield with the top 6 cards. Reveal 2 of them. 2 cards with mana value X or less. Where X is the number of creatures that can evoke it. This is really interesting. I feel like this is the Knight Errant of Eos is a card that I would need to put in a deck, and I would love it there, but I just haven't. Like, it doesn't necessarily click directly with anything. Monastery Mentor coming back. That's a big reprint. This is a flip thing for incubates. More incubates. Let's see. Sometimes battlefield under its owner's control. Draw a card. Okay, what's Seraph of New Capenna? Flying, we can transform it, activate only a sorcery, and then it transforms into this thing. When it attacks, you may sacrifice another creature or artifact. If you do, it gets +2/+1. Yeah, cool art. I really like the transformation here, but not gonna go in anything at this point. Back up with Vigilance. Destroy target non-token artifact, permanent, incubate. Yeah. Sunfall is awesome. To exile all creatures, incubate X, where X is the number of creatures exiled this way. Like, that's a huge effect. Like, basically get rid of every creature on the board, make a big token. This is one that, again, if I opened, I would put into a deck. Like, this probably has a spot in Atraxa, since that deck doesn't really run that many creatures. It's a good way of protecting the board, and it gives you a blocker, and so that has a counter that can then be proliferated with Atraxa. So I need a friend to help if you really need to, so you're not so alone. That's good to hear. Like, I feel like, as someone who has never coded, like, that's one of, like, the super intimidating things, is it just seems like something goes wrong, and there's just, like, so much going on that it'd be so hard to find it. So yeah, just trying to get to the crux of what happened. It just seems crazy difficult with coding, again, like, as an outsider. Let's see, Zalfir Lancer. Again, I love this. The cool Rhino. Enters the battlefield and control. It gets +1 Vigilance. Okay, so we're not doing knights. Can evoke, counter spell, draw a card, draw 2 cards. So now we're probably, as we get into these, we'll probably talk about Varens. Let's see, it's an enchantment. Beta spell unless it's control plays 4. If they do, incubate. So interesting. You either get to counter the spell or you get the incubate. This is a defender that transforms. This is cool art. Transforms and exile the top card of your library until your next turn. You may play that card. Okay. Let's see. Chrome Shark. Complete the circuit. So this is one. I don't know why I opened it in a new tab. Convoke, so your creatures help you cast it. You can cast sorcery spells this turn as though they had flash. So, and that's pretty exciting. And then the next spell you cast, when you next cast an instant or sorcery spell this turn, copy it twice. You may choose new copies for the target. We're going to put this in Varen. Slayerfall, how you doing today? Thank you for that follow. What's up? What are you playing? What are you watching? What are you listening to? Welcome. Happy to have you. Let's see, what card was this? Complete the circuit. I just did not spell it right, did I? No, I missed that I. I was like, it does not look right. So Varen, it has Magecraft, so whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn. And then when you cast or copy it, or if casting or copying an instant or sorcery causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. So basically, on face value, Varen says, okay, whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, this card gets +2/+2. But then there's a lot of really cool effects that trigger when you cast spells, and Varen doubles those effects. Mostly play Modern, but hyped for March of the Machine. Nice. I used to play a lot of Modern. I played Mono Blue Merfolk, and I played White Black Tokens. Both of which decks were like medium at their high point, but like I played a lot of those, and then just kind of didn't keep up with Modern. I played in one of the SCG Modern Opens, and I guess like 2018. Did okay. It was like my first like really big tournament, and I think I went like 4-5 on day one, and so it was like better than I had expected, especially because I had just moved back to Dallas, and so like I hadn't really been playing, and I wasn't like up on the metagame that much, but it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed playing. What do you play in Modern? Don't know anything about the game. Only heard about it recently. There's a lot going on. And so the good thing about Magic is that you can kind of pick your bubble, for lack of a better word. That like it's obviously, and there is obviously an intimidating amount of cards when you look at like the history of the game, but you don't necessarily need to worry about them. It's all about finding what seems cool to you. If you want to play more competitively, there's competitive stuff. If you want to play more casually with your friends, there's Commander. If you want to just like get your feet wet and try the game, there's Magic the Gathering Arena, which is the primary way that I play competitive stuff. Basically, I use that for like competitive, and then the physical cards I have are pretty much only for Commander now. But I like that as like kind of like a division for me. But Arena is also nice because it can be grindy, but it is grindy, but it can be free to play. So, want to offer promotion. Oh, thank you for the promotion. I would like to ban you. Did they not? Did I do it wrong? Oh, there we go. I blocked them instead of banning them. That's my bad. That's my bad. Let's see. Tawashi permits you control transforms, or a permanent card under your control enters under your control. You may draw a card. Do this only once each turn. We don't specifically need that for anything. Eyes of Gitaxis. Incubate 3. Draw 2. Or draw a card. Fairy Mastermind. Shout out to Utah. So winning the world championship, he got his likeness on a card. Fairy Mastermind is probably just like a staple in everything. And so like it's probably like, I don't know, probably like one of the best cards in the set in terms of long-term play. And so we're going to put it at least in Marchesa. I should also talk about the card. It says Flash, Flying. If your opponent draws their second card each turn, you draw a card. And then you can pay 4 mana and have each player draw a card. So it's very good because if you activate this effect on your opponent's turn, they will have already drawn a card. So you will get to draw a card for the ability and draw a card for the other ability triggering. So it's a good way to like keep parity or get ahead on parity. And yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how this card plays out in a lot of decks. I think that there's a good chance we'll see this card all over the place, especially at 2 mana. And so it is kind of a generally good card. It doesn't necessarily like scream any specific theme, which is kind of cool. Although we'll get there later, but one of the other decks I'm considering building from this set is possibly going to use it. But we'll put one in Marchesa. I think that's the deck that I'm most likely to play it in because that deck needs the card draw help the most. And so we'll put it there. There's some other places, like we could put one in Tulane. Veyron is a flyer for Veyron. It's not really on theme for that deck, but same with like Atraxa. It's not really on theme, but there are some fun things that you could do with it. Let's see. We have Halo Charged Scab. So creepy, much gross, but hey, it is what it is. It's very Bane in the art. Okay, let's see. Okay, let's open this one. Let's see. Don't care about stun counters. Don't care about that one. To draw and discard. Okay, so we'll talk about this one. Okay, so Invasion of Arcavios. It's another siege, so it enters. We give it to an opponent. It has 7 defense, which is a whole bunch and is probably unreasonably too much. When it enters battlefield, search your library, graveyard, and/or outside of the game for an instant or a sorcery card you own. Reveal it, put it in your hand. If you search your library this way, shuffle. And then it transforms into Invocation of the Founders. So whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell from your hand, you may copy that spell, choose new targets for the copy. So we're going to put this, this is set on Strixhaven. It's about copying instants and sorcery spells. So we're going to put this into Veyron. And so Veyron will make it so that we are getting 2 copies of the spell that we cast instead of just 1 from Invocation. Veyron has a lot of this type of effect in it already, so I don't know if like this one with the battle it would be good enough. So this is like a card that we might put in, play for a couple games, find it tends to be too slow, and then get rid of it. But I like to try new cards whenever I'm like going through versus just like sitting on stuff that I know I like. So let's see. Jin Cataxis. When you cast a non-creature spell with mana value 3 or greater, draw a card. Then you can exile it transformed only if you have 7 or more cards in hand. Draw cards equal to the number of cards in your hand. You have no maximum hand size for as long as you control the Great Synthesis. Return all non-Phyrexian cards to their owner's hand. You may cast any number of spells from your hand without paying their mana cost. Then you flip it back. This could go in Atraxa, just because Atraxa is all about non-creature spells with mana value 3 or greater, since they're all planeswalkers. Casting things for free is great, obviously. And so I think that's where we're going to land with it. Obviously, we don't have to put cards anywhere, but like, I think that this is a good place to start with that. Again, this is one that I may not buy, but would hope to open and add to that deck. Just because it's not necessarily on theme, since itself, there we go, got there, is not a planeswalker. But it does some cool stuff that would fit in well with that deck. So, and with Atraxa, we could basically have it flip, draw cards, instantly return all of the stuff, and then get the saga on our next turn, since we would be adding the second lore counter on instep. So convoke, draw 2 cards, Moment of Truth, put 1 in your hand. Cool art. This is probably one of the best pieces from this set, IMO. Shout out to, who is this? Ravina Cat or Ravina K? Let's see. As long as you control a transformed permanent, it gets when it dies, draw a card. So this mainly own activate abilities. Draw a card, then discard. Shuffle up to 4 target non-permanent 3 or greater from your graveyard. I like this art too. Let's see. So here we have a Human Knight. It transforms into, when it becomes blocked, that creature gets -1/-1. Don't really have an interest in that. Enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 blue and red elemental token. What is this? Tap. Okay. Rona, Herald of the Invasion. When you cast a legendary spell, untap it. Then you can tap it to draw a card and then discard a card. And then for 5, you can transform it. It transforms into Rona, the Talarian Obliterator. When a source deals damage to Rona, its source's controller exiles a card from their hand at random. If it's a land card, you may put it on the battlefield under your control. Otherwise, you may cast it without paying its mana cost. So, love this card. It's going in Marchesa. Invasion. And the reason for that is, let me get Marchesa the Black Rose. So, okay, I just wanted to see the picture. Thank you. Okay, so Marchesa the Black Rose, probably my favorite commander ever. And so it's probably also my longest assembled commander deck. So 3/3, it has she has Dethrone. When this creature attacks, the player with the most life or tied for the most, put a +1/+1 counter on it. So it's all about keeping your life total low, attacking whoever has the most, getting those counters. Marchesa also gives your other creatures Dethrone. And then whenever a creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it dies, return that card to the battlefield under your control at the beginning of the next end step. So there are a couple different ways to build this. One of the ways is that the ability actually works if you steal your opponent's creatures, get a counter on them, and then sacrifice them. I don't play it that way. I think I only have one steal effect in my deck, but that is something that you can do. The way that I play Marchesa is it's almost all legendary creatures. And in fact, like my overall goal is to eventually have it be all legendary creatures. Because I kind of like the idea of its Marchesa as this wizard trying to get her way and take over the plane, is like assembling her crew, almost like a D&D thing. Of it's like, what party is she going to assemble to come and help her with her plans? And so, but the reason we're not there is that you need some very good effects that are not on legendary creatures, and so that makes it very difficult to do that. And so, so because of that, Rona kind of fits right in. Like that deck already has a strong legendary theme, and Marchesa is very low to the ground, mana value wise. So 2 fits right in there, and then honestly, just the ability to constantly draw and discard is pretty solid. And then that deck does a lot of work with like constantly attacking. You want to make sure that you're like hitting your opponents, and so having something like the Obliterator that makes it difficult for them to attack it seems really strong in that deck. So okay, moving on. Let's see, cool art here as well. Let's see, transform. See double. The spell can't be copied. Choose one. Opponent has 8 or more cards in the graveyard. Choose both. Copy target spell. Choose new copies or create a token that's a copy of target permanent or target creature. I'm gonna put this under Tana and Sakashima. That deck is probably getting taken apart, but it's all about creating a bunch of tokens, and so I'm gonna put it there for now. Like I said, we're probably not keeping that deck together. It just never really connected with me. Let's see. Attacks. You may tap 2 untapped creatures you control. If you do, it can't be blocked. Instant Convoke, draw X cards. This card is crazy cool. So this would be great in Veyrin, because Veyrin has things in it that create tokens whenever you cast instants or sorceries, which can give you the creatures to help pay for the Convoke. I'm not really sure it has enough of that to really be worth it, but we'll put it there for now. I could also see this going in Chulane, because Chulane just has a bunch of creatures, likes to hold up mana to cast things at instant speed. And so I could definitely see that going there as well. See, Wicked Slumber, tap up to 2 target creatures, put a stun counter on either. Okay. Zephyr Singer can invoke, has flying and vigilance, and then when it attacks, put a fly, or when it enters the battlefield, put a plus one, blah 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 blah. When Zephyr Singer enters the battlefield, put a flying counter on each creature that can invoke it. So I like this a lot. I think this might have a home in Camise, because that deck likes to give flying counters to things, or likes to have creatures with evasion. And so Camise is from New Capenna's precon. When you attack, target attacking creature can't be blocked this turn. It connives, which means you draw a card and then discard a card. If you discarded a non-land card, it gets a +1/+1 counter. And then you choose a creature, another attacking creature with lesser power. That creature gains double strike until end of turn. So the deck wants two things. It wants like creatures that you can make unblockable to get an effect, and then it wants creatures with Saboteur effects when they deal damage to a player, effects that you can give double strike to. And so one of the challenges is a lot of creatures with Saboteur effects like don't necessarily have great evasion, or they maybe have one type of evasion, but if you can give them a second one, they're very good. And you don't necessarily want to use your unblockable on those. And so something like Zephyr Singer that can also give those creatures flying is going to be very, very helpful. So there's also a bit of the reanimation package there. I'm not really sure if we would ever really reanimate this creature, but we'll add it to the list. Speaking of that exact type of card, Archpriest of Shadows, backup 1, Death Touch. When this creature deals combat damage to a player or battle, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. So the way the backup works is we can put this counter on another creature, and then when we do that, that creature gains the rest of the following abilities. So that creature would gain Death Touch, and then that creature would gain the ability of when it deals damage to reanimate a creature from the graveyard for that turn. And so Archpriest of Shadows, I think, is going to go perfectly into Camise. And one of the major reasons for that is that Camise is a 4-drop. Camise is a 4-drop, and which means you can play Camise. It's no longer, then the next turn when it's not summoning sick, you can cast Archpriest of Shadows, attack with Camise, or back up onto it, give Camise unblockable from its ability, hit the opponent, ideally discard a creature with Connive, and then reanimate the thing that you discarded. And then from then on, Archpriest just becomes a great thing to hit your opponents with. So I think this is going to actually be like one of my first pickups from the set. It just fits so perfectly into that deck. And I've really been loving the Camise deck a lot like lately. And so Arya, Widow of the Realm, when it enters, or you may sack a creature or artifact. It deals X damage to target opponent and gain X life, where X is a sacrifice permanent's value. And then it can flip Trombone. Oops, gotta get there. Gotta get there.
Hello.
How you doing this morning? Hopefully that played for you. It did not come through my audio. But how's your morning going, Trombone? Hope you're having a good one. We're chatting Magic the Gathering, chatting new cards, seeing what's up. Arya, Fornus, Queen. When at the beginning of combat, any turn, attempt to one target artifact or creature from your graveyard to the battlefield. Gains haste to exile at the beginning of the next step. If this was red-white instead of red-black, I'd be very interested. Don't necessarily have a home for this. It could go in Marchesa. And like, I think this is going to be one that if I was to open it, I would probably try to find a place for it there. But otherwise, we don't really want to be gaining life in that deck. But definitely interesting. Except beginning of the next end step. Yeah, so we could return it to the battlefield, have it attack, get a counter, sacrifice it. Yeah, maybe this would have a good spot in Marchesa. You know what? I talked myself into it. Again, we don't really want to be gaining life, but the fact that we can. Slightly grumpy, didn't sleep. Oof, I'm sorry, Trombone. I'm sorry. Hopefully the day looks up and gets better. Until attach it to target creature you control, it gains indestructible until end of turn. Let's see. This transforms into a dies, create a 1/1. Okay, we don't specifically care about that. Bloated Processor. Sack another Phyrexian. We're not going to play a Phyrexian deck, so that's not necessarily him. Breach the Multiverse. Each player mills 10. For each player, choose a creature playing something on a card in that player's graveyard. Put those cards on the battlefield under your control. Each creature you control becomes a Phyrexian in addition to its other types. This could go in Mayrin. I'm not like overly hyped about that, but if I opened one, that's probably where I would put it. At least you're on break and don't have to worry about work. Oh, that's awesome. I hope your break is going well. Any big plans for break, or is the plan to have no plans? Also, did you finish Undertale? I know you had been playing that, but I think I've missed the past couple streams. Let's see. Completed Huntmaster. Back up, gives lifelink. Sack another creature, draw a card, or sack a creature, draw a card. I love that we see Duretti on a card. Let's go. Super excited about that. Destroy target creature or planeswalker. Create a treasure. Sack a creature or artifact. Each opponent loses 1, you gain 1. Rip the Filigree Familiar. When it dies, each opponent loses 2, you gain 2. Incubate. Finish-ish. Is there like post-game stuff or like side stuff? Need to do some research on the ending since you didn't do what was expected based on the walkthrough. Oh, interesting. Because you were doing Pacifist Run for Undertale, right? If I remember correctly. Been streaming Power Wash Sim. I started Final Fantasy 9. Nice. Final Fantasy 9. I watched Chris play a whole bunch of that in college. I've never actually played it, but it looked very fun from what he was doing. I hope that we get to see some other Final Fantasy games get some love. Now that we're seeing like the Final Fantasy VII remake, I would love to see them give that sort of treatment to some of the other games. Maybe not like a 3-part remake, but see them do that type of stuff. Extra dice avail 1. Not interested in that. Swamp Cycling, backup Menace. Enters the battlefield. Phyrexians you control gain Menace. I like this art too. I like the second artifact or creature. Return it from the graveyard to the battlefield. Okay, Hoarding Broodlord. Let's see. So when it enters the battlefield, search your, or has Convoke. So our creatures help us cast it. When it enters the battlefield, search your library for a card, exile it face down, then shuffle. For as long as it remains exiled, you may play it. The spells you cast from exile have Convoke. So I think that this is something that I would put in Mayrin. Let's pull up Mayrin. And so Mayrin is whenever a creature dies, you get an experience. In the beginning of end step, you may choose a creature card in the graveyard. If the card's converted mana cost or mana value now is less than or equal to the number of experience counters you have, return it to the battlefield, otherwise to your hand. So Mayrin's all about big creatures, reanimating them, getting effects. And I feel like Hoarding Broodlord fits into that deck. We're already running like Runescar Demon. And just the ability to convoke this out seems really good. I definitely play, I'm going to say a more fun version of Mayrin. I feel like people would argue that there's no fun version of it. But so there's a chance that this wouldn't make it because I don't want another tutor. But I like to like go and get big creatures to reanimate with it. And so we'll put it there. We'll see if that's actually where it would land. We also don't cast a ton or have a bunch of other ways to exile cards. And so, or cast cards from exile. So it is what it is. let's see. Step on put into graveyard from battlefield. It gets a counter. Okay, so we have some more invasions that are sideways. We're gonna look at this one. Let's look at this one as well. What's this one? Okay, we don't think we can. Okay, so let's chat these two. Okay, so Invasion of Fiora. When it enters the battlefield, choose one or both. Destroy all legendary creatures, or destroy all non-legendary creatures. And then it transforms. As it's and or destroy. So you could just destroy all creatures, period. Then it turns into Marchesa, Resolute Monarch. And so when Marchesa attacks, remove all counters from up to one target permanent. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you haven't been dealt damage since your last turn, you draw a card and you lose 1 life. So this has to go in my Marchesa deck, just for flavor purposes, since it is her having now become queen. Unfortunately, I can't play that card because Queen Marchesa is a different colors. But it is the same character. We got our cool crown. And so, yeah, I feel like we have to play this in our Marchesa deck. Is it going to be good? I don't know. It's pretty expensive. 6 mana is a lot to flip into this. But man, we just got to play it. I couldn't believe we saw or get to see Marchesa in a real, in a main set. And so we have to put that there. I think that there's also an argument for putting this card in so I'm trying to remember now which deck I was thinking about putting it in. There's an argument for putting this card in Camise as well. And that is because Camise is really good at flipping battles, since you can give your creatures unblockable. So this is a pretty good way to just destroy the board, immediately attack it, immediately get this flipped. And so not really sure if we're going to land there, but that's the thought. Okay. So Invasion of Innistrad. When it enters the battlefield, target creature and opponent controls gets -13/-13. Pretty expensive for that effect. But then you get to attack it and you get 2/2 zombies. And then you can exile a card from a graveyard. If it was a creature card, create another zombie. So this one is going to go into our Wilhelt deck because we are all about zombies over there. So let's take a look at Wilhelt. So Wilhelt, when another zombie you control dies, if it didn't have Decayed, create a 2/2 zombie token with Decayed. And then at the beginning of your end step, you may sack a zombie. If you do, draw a card. And so anything that gives fuel to our zombies is really all about what Wilhelt wants to be doing. And so fuel and, I guess, gives us more zombies. So Trilena says, you love that sim. I've never played Power Wash Sim. I really was considering buying it once they added the Final Fantasy VII stuff. I know some people have really loved it. It looks really fun. I've never had a chance to get to it. I never super got into sim games. I'm going to talk and look through cards. Love this art. Love the octopus arms or squid arms. It looks like it could be an inkling from Splatoon. I never really got into Sims other than I played a good chunk of Sim City. And then I played a good chunk of Civilization, specifically 2, 3, and 4. They suggest you could play it for free. Hey, do what you got to do. Let's see. Gagachawa. Enjoyed. Oh, I did enjoy 2 Point Campus. Yeah, you're right. That game is so bananas that I don't think of it as a sim in the same category, but it 100% is. And so it's so much about how you arrange the rooms, how you do all of that stuff. Yeah, Trombone, great call. Yeah, I feel there's the Sims that try to be realistic, and then there's the Sims that are just let's apply these deep simulation mechanics to preposterous situations, or situations that are so far out. Like you see that a lot with a lot of Mars games. There was one I tried that I didn't really get into, but yeah, it's just like it happened to my brother-in-law, Panda Boy, where he was doing a Mars game and his people ended up. A lot of his people started dying, and it was because he was only bringing scientists. There weren't people that were like working other jobs, and so no one was getting food. The lore for Power Wash is deaf preposterous. What's the lore, Trombone? Okay, let's see. Shieldred Menace. When it enters the battlefield, each opponent sacks a non-token creature or planeswalker transformed, and only if the opponent has 8 or more cards in their graveyard. For each opponent, destroy up to 1 target creature or planeswalker they control. Each opponent discards 3 cards, then milths 3. Put all creature cards from all graveyards onto the battlefield under your control. Sack or exile the true scriptures. Return it. Again, this could definitely have a home in Mayrin, just because that card or that deck puts so much in the graveyard. Old red. Put so much in the graveyard that it could very easily fit in there. Traumatic Revelation, Unsealed, Vanquish the Weak. Shout out to Atraxa showing up. And okay, we're into red now. Let's see. Can't block when an instant or source spell deals damage to an opponent or battle. Pay red. Turn the graveyard to the battlefield that gains haste. Okay, Chandra Beacon's Hope's Beacon. So when you cast an instant sorcery spell, copy it. You may choose new targets for the copy. This ability triggers only once each turn. Add 2 red or 2 mana of any combination. Exile the top 5 cards. You may cast an instant or sorcery spell from among those exiled cards. Deals X damage to each of up to 2 targets. So this copies an instant and sorcery, so it's going in Veyron. I think here there's a good argument between Invasion of Arcavios and Chandra, where like Invasion, you got to do a lot of work to flip it. But Chandra, you just get the effect right away. Well, the mayor's cat is named Ulysses, and there's at least 1 volcano on the edge of town. Oh no, not volcano. It just makes me think, like, are there Cyclopses? Do you have a Cyclops? City on Fire has Convoke, and then if a source you control would deal damage to a permanent or player, it deals triple that damage instead. That goes right into Perforos, which is probably the deck that I have had assembled for a very long time, but have not really added cards to. I need to go and put some stuff there. Coming in hot. I love this art. Let's see. Atali. This one seems really good. Turns into Blightsteel. And the townspeople tell their hired power washer a lot of details. Much oversharing. I didn't realize that there was actually like narrative in that game. I thought you were just out power washing. That's cool. It makes me even more excited to want to try it. I'm more interested in wanting to try it. Yeah, I did not realize that there was actually like a narrative that goes on. Let's see. Comes tab. So you may discard a card if you do draw a card. It's all through text messages. Oh. Into the fire. Put any number of cards from your hand on the bottom of your library. Then draw that many +1. That's okay. Invasion of Kaldheim. We're going to just open these. I don't feel like reading sideways. Okay. Invasion of Kaldheim. When it enters the battlefield, exile all cards from your hand. You may draw that many cards. Or then draw that many cards. Until the end of your next turn, you may play cards exiled this way. And then it turns into the Pile of the World Tree. We can discard a land to deal 2 damage to any target. If you discard a land card, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card. Powerful, but I don't think fits really into any of our decks. You tried to play Mario Sunshine and didn't care for it. Your friend told me that you'd love it since you loved Power Wash Sim, but it didn't hit the same. I feel like that's a jump. Like, again, I haven't played Power Wash Sim, but I have played Super Mario Sunshine. And I feel like that's a jump mechanic-wise to be like, to be like, if you like one, you would like the other. I can definitely see where your friend is coming from, but like, I don't know. That doesn't seem like a one-to-one, a one-to-one jump or anything. So when this enters, deal 3 damage to each creature, each planeswalker. When you cast a spell, it deals 2 damage to each opponent. So this I could see having a home in Veyron, because as long as that spell is an instant and sorcery, we would get this effect again, and we'd be dealing 4 damage. That being said, I don't think I'm running Gutter Snipe in my Veyron deck right now. So, do I have Gutter Snipe? And I feel like if I was going to play one of those, I'd probably just play Gutter Snipe. And so let's see, when it enters the battlefield, you may discard a card. If you do, draw 2 cards, and then create 2 1/1 tokens. The creatures you control gain +1 in haste until end of turn. I like this one for Purphoros, actually. So it's a good, and it uses mana, and you have to discard a card for it. But it's a good way to be creating tokens, which are then going to be dealing damage. And so, as I said earlier, I'm also a sucker for just trying the new cards. I would much rather like put new cards in my decks and have them shift around than trying to like have an optimized list. So, into the battlefield, deal 4 damage to target another target battle or opponent, and up to 1 damage to up to 1 target creature. Prowess, non-creatures can deal damage to a creature, battle, or opponent, and deals damage. Non-creature source would deal damage. I'm going to put this over in the Purphoros category. As long as Purphoros isn't a creature, this effect makes their ability more powerful. Not sure if they would add this card would actually stay in, but we'll put it there. Invasion of Tarkir. We don't have a dragons deck, but this one is very good, and I love this art. So we're just wanting to look at that. But basically, you deal damage if you have dragons, and then when a dragon attacks, it deals 2 damage to any target. So if we had a dragons deck, and this is probably one of the most powerful battles in this set, but we just don't really have a home for it. I've been really thinking about, going back trombone to you, for mentioning Mario. I've been really wanting to go back and actually finish Mario Sunshine, because I don't think I ever beat it as a kid. Like, I played a lot of it, but I don't think I ever got through. And I want to find my GameCube again. I think I know where it is, but I'm not 100% sure. And so, yeah, we might be streaming some Mario Sunshine at some point in the future if I can get it hooked up to my computer to stream. I did not buy the collection that they put out. That was only available for like a limited time. But yeah, I've been thinking about going back and trying that game. And this is attached to target creature. Gets just 5 damage, target creature, planeswalker or battle. Look at the top X cards of the library. X is the excess damage dealt this way. You may exile one of those cards. For the rest on the bottom, you may play the exiled card. I don't think we need that for anything. It's a thing. When it dies, each opponent sacks it. No, we don't need that. This is cool art. Convoke, 3/1, and trample. If we could like pay the equip with Convoke, this would be really good. But Rampaging Raptor, it's +2/+0, and then when it deals combat damage to an opponent, or it deals that much damage to target planeswalker that player controls or battle that player protects. I think this card could see some serious like standard play, but it doesn't really go in here or in any of our commander decks. When it attacks, up to 1 target attacking creature gets +2/+0. I love this raccoon. Return that creature to its owner's hand. I just love how angry this raccoon is. Serena Barb. Let's see. Going through, basically a big dragon that convokes a big Shivan dragon. That doesn't have fire breathing. That makes me sad. Stoke the Flames is back. When it attacks a battle, it gets +1/+1. Some cool lore hold art here. Another target creature gains haste. Urabrask. Okay, so we're definitely putting this in some places. So Urabrask. First strike, when you cast an instant or sorcery, it deals 1 damage to target opponent, add red mana. Then you can spend red, exile it, and return to the battlefield transformed under its owner's control. Active only as a sorcery, and only if you cast 3 or more instant or sorcery spells this turn. Then it transforms into the Great Work. It deals 3 damage to target opponent and each creature they control. Create 3 treasures. At the end of turn, until end of turn, you may cast instant or sorcery spells from your graveyard. This castaway would be put into a graveyard, exile it instead. Then exile the Great Work and return it to the battlefield. So this is obviously going in Veyron. Again, the ability to ping our opponents as we cast spells and add red mana is very powerful, and we'd get to be doubling up that whole thing. This is another reason that like this invasion probably isn't good enough for what like it's a lot of hoops to jump through, and if we're gonna add one, we'd probably add Gutter Snipe, and then even here we'd probably add Urabrask over Gutter Snipe. So I'm going to just actually go ahead and just delete that out. We'll play one. We maybe try one of the other the invasions if we happen to open it. But let's see. Volcanic Spite. Love this Ren art. Okay, big dino. Let's see. Destroy. Oh, I shall say destroying a battle does not trigger its flip. You have to remove the last counter. When it enters the battlefield, incubate 2. When chain of land is tapped for mana, its controller adds an additional mana. What does this transform into? Oh, it's so mad. I like that transition though. Let's see. Akavu. Incubate. Hexproof. Deals common damage. Let's see. What are we doing back up here? When a creature deals combat damage to a player or a battle, this creature, look at the top, or look at that many cards from the top of your library. Reveal a creature or land card from among them, put it in your hand, put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. That's interesting. Doomscar Warrior. We're gonna put that in Hamza. It is in, yeah, okay. I did spell it correctly. Hamza obviously has a lot that it could play, and so this one wouldn't necessarily make the cut, but it having backup is just very good for what we want to do, and we have a lot of big creatures, so having the ability to get this effect on one of them seems very good. So target player searches their library for a basic land, puts it onto the battlefield tap, then shuffle, put 2 counters on it. Probably not playing that. Incubate twice. This seems like a good card, but I don't necessarily need it for commander. What does this transform into? When it attacks, up to 1 target creature has base power 5/5. Okay. When this one enters the battlefield, gain 3 life, and then you can transform it. When it transforms, target creature and opponent controls gets -0 -X until end of turn, where X is its power. Evasion of Ikoria. So when this enters the battlefield, search your library and or graveyard for a non-human with mana value X or less, put it on the battlefield. If you searched your library this way, shuffle. When it enters the battle, or then each non-human creature you control, you may have assigned combat damage as though it weren't blocked. There's a chance that this is just a play in any green deck as a way to get your creatures out, but I don't necessarily think I want to put this anywhere. It could go in Mayron. Again, just that deck's all about big creatures. It ramps a lot already, stuff like that. Again, don't feel like going sideways for these. Okay, so this one, look at the top 5 cards. You may reveal a permanent from among them, put it in your hand. And then when you cast a spell, it gains indestructible. I think if the back half was better here, we'd consider this for Atraxa, just because it gets us a Planeswalker. But when it develops, put a counter on target creature you control, then that creature fights, and then it transforms into this ooze. Beginning of combat, target loses all other ability and loses all abilities. We're not really about that. When it enters the battlefield, return 3 permanent cards from your graveyard to your hand. And then at the end of your upkeep, you may put a target permanent card from your hand onto the battlefield. So this is another one that like could have a home in Atraxa, just because it gets us our planeswalkers back from our graveyard and then lets us cast something for free every turn. Don't really know if that would make the cut. It's just slow, and Atraxa's not great at flipping, or won't be great at flipping battles. Although it does flip from just an Atraxa hit. So this searches for basic lands, and then this thing is a land in addition to other types, and then it taps for 1 mana of any color. I don't necessarily think we have a good place for that. How are we doing on time? We got 20 minutes left. The Blade Master gets pumped. This, if one or more counters we put on a permanent you control, that many +1 are put on that permanent instead, and then tap for X of any one color where X is its power. Wow, this seems like the perfect card for Hamza. It adds more counters to things, or makes it when we add counters, we add more of them, and then taps to generate ideally a bunch of mana. Like, that seems perfect. Overgrown Pest. Look at the top 5 cards. Library of a land or double-faced card. Now we're good. Oh, the Ozolith. When 1 or more +1 counters are put on an artifact or creature you control, that many +1 are put on it instead. Then you can tap it to put a counter on something, activate only a sorcery, and then it has cycling. So again, this is perfect for Hamza. I really need to go through and like pare down this list. Interesting that, like, I guess their font sizes are different here because of the text size. It's because, no, this one cares about permanents. This one cares about artifacts or creatures. Interesting distinction. Let's see. Exile from your graveyard, put 2+1 counters on target creature. No, we're good. Pelucranos, when it transforms, or another non-token Hydra dies, create a 3/3 green with reach and a 3/3 with lifelink. Probably not putting that anywhere. Fun callbacks. Choose target battle. Opponent protects it. Remove a defense counter from it. Otherwise, put a defense counter on it. And that's cool. It's a way of adding counters or removing counters. Among the milled cards into your hand. Don't want that. Not interested in that. This is a fantastic art here as well. Distribute 4 +1/+1 counters on up to 4 target creatures you control. They gain vigilance and trample. It's a bit expensive for that effect for what we would want, but Streetwise Negotiator, we're not really interested in. They deal damage equal to their power to another creature, planeswalker at battle. That's cool, but enters the battlefield, gain 5 life, incubate 5, force cycling. Tribute to the World Tree. When a creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may draw a card, or you have to draw a card if its power is 3 or greater. Otherwise, put 2 +1/+1 counters on it. So this, I think, is also going in Hamza. The world. Man, spelling. This is why I've been copying and pasting a bunch of them. So obviously the counters synergize with our smaller creatures, make it so they tap, or so that they can reduce the cost of things for Hamza. And then this also, if we have big creatures, draws us cards, which is what that wants to do. The fact that this costs 3 green might make it hard for us to cast in that deck because we don't necessarily always have great colored sources. But that deck already has a bit of an Enchantress sub-theme. So, Vorinclex, when it enters the battlefield, search your library for 2 forest cards, reveal them and put them in your hand. They don't go on the battlefield, so this doesn't ramp you. And then for 8, it transforms. Mill 10 cards, put up to 2 target creature cards or among the milled cards onto the battlefield. Distribute 7 +1/+1 counters among any number of target creatures you control. Until end of turn, creatures you control gain. This creature fights target creature you don't control, then you flip it. I like this for Tulane. And the reason for that is Tulane really just wants you to have lands in hand for its ability. And so this puts a couple in your hand. And then the ability that Tulane also, since it's such a big mana deck, also was interested in reanimating stuff. It's possible that this would also be good in Marine. So let's move that over there as well. Since that deck is all about casting and reanimating stuff. Not really sure if it would make the cut there, but that's where it is. Okay. Wrenn and Realm Breaker. I already put this in the Atraxa list, but lands you control have tap, add 1 mana of any color, the Chromatic Lantern effect, +1 to untap a land you control. It becomes up to 1 land you control. You do not untap it. Becomes a 3/3 with Vigilance, Hexproof, and Haste. It's still a land. Mill 3, put a card from among the milled cards into your hand. You get an emblem with you may play lands and cast spells from your graveyard. So this is going in or is on the list for Atraxa. It's also a pretty quick emblem for Atraxa, which is nice. It's not like ideal, but if you play this on 3 plus it, play Atraxa on 4, plus this again, it goes up to 6, and then Atraxa proliferates it to 7, so you get the emblem on your next turn. So, and then you can just use that to recast it from the graveyard if you want it. And so, yeah, so I'm interested in that one. Well, I feel like it's a perfect thing for Atraxa. Although we'll see. The +1 not being the best can definitely hold it back, because this is basically a blank ability for a lot of commander decks. Okay, multicolored. Baral and Kari Zev. When you cast your first instant sorcery spell, you may cast a spell with lesser mana value that shares a card type with it from your hand without paying its mana cost. If you don't, create the first mate Ragavan, a legendary 2/2 red monkey pirate creature token. So this is going in Veyran. So the trigger here, if we cast like a 4 mana sorcery, we would get to cast 2 3 mana or less sorceries for free, or create 2 1/1 monkeys, which one of them would die because of legendary, but or of course one of each of those. So I like that a lot. The ability that we can be casting things for free, and especially if we cast instants on our opponent's turns, we can cast more instants. This reminds me a lot of Gale that we just had. And so, yeah. Nope, not that one. I want actual Gale. There we go. Gale, Waterdeep Prodigy. Cast an instant sorcery spell from your hand. You may cast up to 1 target card from the other type from your graveyard. If the spell cast from a graveyard, put into your graveyard, exile it. So, like, this gives you value. If you cast a sorcery, you get to cast an instant for free, and vice versa. If you cast an instant, you get a sorcery for free. And so, Baral and Kari Zev kind of have a similar vibe. And so, yeah, I like that. So when this enters battlefield, draw a card, discard any number of land cards, then deals twice that much damage to target creature. I know Jarrett from the Infinity Bears is looking to build this because Fibblefip is one of his favorite characters. Okay, this enters battlefield 2 +1/+1 counters. When 1 or more are put on another permanent you control, if it's the first time have been put there, put a counter on this. This is probably not playable in Hamza. It doesn't get a mana reduction. It does have the counters itself, which is nice, but it probably doesn't get played. Giru and Hazoret, if you have 1 or fewer, they have Vigilance and Haste, which is fine. And then, what do we have? We have the ability that we can exile the top 6 cards of our library. If you may exile or look at the top 6 hogs. Exile a legendary card from among them. Put the rest on the bottom of your library. Until end of turn, you may cast the exiled card without paying its mana cost. Again, I don't think we really have a good red-white home for this. Edgar doesn't want it since it itself is not a vampire. Osgir doesn't want it because it doesn't care about artifacts. Yeah, and those are my only 2 red-white decks. I really like this card. But I'm also not necessarily looking for another legendary deck when I already have several legendary like sub-themes going on. Drana and Lavinia. And all cards. You choose your opponent's control. So mana's our mana any color. That's fun, but I don't think I like Drana as a character. But This transforms an incubator. Okay, you can cast. Look at the top card of your library. Cast spells with flying or flash from the top. Galta and Mavrin are dinosaur vampires. So excited for that. Create a tapped XX dinosaur with trample, where X is the greatest power among other attacking creatures. Create vampires with lifelink, where X is the number of other attacking creatures. We'd play this in Edgar if we could, but it's green, so we can't. New Glissa, Herald of Predation. Transform all incubator tokens you control. Phyrexians you control gain first strike, or you incubate twice. I skipped that first one. Don't necessarily really want that. Let's see. What is this? Halo Forger. When it enters the battlefield, pay X. If you do, cast target instant sorcery with mana value X from your graveyard without paying its mana cost. So I would put Animal Exile instead. I don't think we have a place for this. It could fit into Marchesa, but we don't necessarily have a ton of instants and sorceries there. So there's that. Hitasugu and Kairi. Enters the battlefield, draw 3, put 2 on from your hand on top, so you brainstorm. When it dies, exile the top card of your library. Target opponent loses life equal to its mana value. So you like set it up, then you can sacrifice this or clone it. I think this is going to be a very fun deck to play, but doesn't really fit necessarily in any of the decks that I have. Inga and Eska. Creatures you control have vigilance and tap. Add 1 mana, spend only to cast creature spells. When you cast a creature spell with 3 or more mana from creatures you was spent on it, draw a card. We're going to put this into Chulane. We already play a bunch of creatures. It should be a good way of pumping out more creatures quickly. And basically, you just want to kind of constantly be drawing. And so this card helps you do that with that first effect. And so we got some more invasions. Again, we specifically want to pay attention to the Esper ones, since the Esper ones, there's so many. Since the Esper ones fit into Camille. So this is 5 color. We don't have a 5 color deck, so we're actually going to just skip it. When it enters the battlefield, mill 3 cards. Then each opponent discards a card and you draw a card. It enters the battlefield as a copy of any creature card in a graveyard, except it's a zombie. We're going to put this on the list for Camille's. Not sure if this actually makes the cut, but the ability to get a copy of something from a graveyard in a deck that wants to fill its own graveyard seems good. Sacrifice plays it and loses 1 life. That's just medium. If a permanent was put into a graveyard from the battlefield, that's okay. Treasure token. I don't think I have a red-green deck actually. Enters the battlefield, create. Oh, we do, but it's token based. Create a Thopter equal to the number of artifacts. We'd play this if it was red-white, but it's not. Invasion of Callum. Shout out to Callum from Battle Bond. And this flips. You get 2 tokens. I don't think we really want that for anything. This deals, you destroy target non-elf, where X is the number of lands. And then its power equals the number of lands. Yeah, we don't really have a home for that. We can't reanimate it in Marin either, since it's not a creature in the graveyard. Enters the battlefield, put a +1 on each creature you control. And then when at the beginning of your set, put a +1 on target creature you control. This definitely could have a spot in Hamza. The good old green-white theme of counters. So just the ability to pump all of our creatures, and then they help us with our future creatures going forward. Invasion of New Capenna. Enters the battlefield, sack an artifact or creature. If you do, exile target artifact or creature an opponent controls. When this attacks, put a +1 on. When a creature attacks, put a +1 counter on that creature and each other creature that shares a creature type with it. It's close to being in Camille's, but we don't have like a creature type theme going on there. This is Knights. Transforms into Teferi. I don't think this would have a space in Atraxa. There's its abilities aren't necessarily good enough for what that deck wants to do. Enters the battlefield, scry 3. So land are double faced, you draw it, and then it turns into this. Yeah. Let's see. This one, when enters battlefield, return another non-battle permanent from your graveyard to the battlefield. And then creature tokens get +1/+0 and have lifelink, and then you create a 1/1. Close to be, this is, again, if the back of this was different, we'd probably play it in Camise. And then here enters the battlefield return up to one target creature to its owner's hand, and then it transforms into this, the Vertex Paladin. That's very cool art. Vertex Paladins, power type equals the number of creatures you control. Okay, so that's the battles. Okay, how are we doing? We're close to wrapping up for the day. Let's see if we can sprint through the rest of these. Enters the battlefield, create 2 1/1s. When you cast a spell that has Convoke, not necessarily interesting. We don't have a good red-green deck. Kroxa and Kunaros reanimates, but we don't have a deck for it. We don't have a night deck. Tapios Tree Control becomes a target of a backup ability. Copy that ability. They transformed. We finally got 5-color Omnath. It becomes black instead at the beginning of your... Well, we don't have a 5-color deck. What am I doing? Do you play MTG online? I play MTG Arena, yes. It's a great way if you are interested in learning. It's a very good way of learning to play. Or if you just play, we can always jam games. It is free to play, but it's grindy. I've played it since like closed beta. I've managed to be free to play the whole time. You can buy packs, you can do stuff like that, but definitely recommend it. We'll probably be streaming some Arena after the set comes out. I might stream a couple drafts in the morning, and so, or on various mornings, I guess is the way to say that. So we can actually play with the cards, because I really like the cards from this set. You're interested, but it feels overwhelming to enter by yourself without a guide. Yeah, if you are interested, I've heard that the onboarding for Arena is really good. Or Trombone, if you wanted to do it on stream or just like on a call together, I would love to just get in and I can chat with you through it. That way it's not just you there by yourself. You have somebody to talk to. We could do that in like a Discord call or something too. And you could like stream within the chat. Happy to do that and hang out and talk through stuff. So it definitely is an overwhelming amount to get into. One of the best pieces of advice I can give to someone that's interested in playing Magic is to don't try to look at everything. There's way too much. Find like, what I'm going to say is like a niche, and only look at that. And have that be your starting point. So like if you have friends to play with physically, or like in person, get a commander precon and just worry about playing that deck. Don't worry about adding cards yet. Don't worry about what other people could be doing. Just play that precon. Get a hang for the game. If you can play online, like I said, I've heard that the onboarding there is very good. And so definitely recommend that as well. And like I said, happy to, if you want to ping me, we can find a time. Like I said, I can hop on a call with you and we can chat through some of the tutorials and stuff like that if you're interested. Because it is 100% very intimidating. I think I've played Magic consistently for 11 years now, and I played before that as well. Yeah, ping me. Sweet. We'll chat. I'm always up for chatting Magic the Gathering. So, Quintorius, when it's up, exile target non-creature, non-land from a graveyard, create a 3/3, sack a spirit, choose a card exiled with it. You may cast that card this turn without paying its mana cost. So we put into a graveyard the bottom of his owner's library instead. That's interesting. Could go in Osgear. We haven't really had any good Osgear cards in this set so far, but not necessarily have to. Rankle, Master of Prankles with Torbrin. Deals combination player choose winning number. Each player creates a treasure. Each player sacks a creature. If a source would deal damage to a player or battle this turn, it deals that much +2. Don't really have a great home for that. Could go in Marchesa, but Thalia and Gitrog, play an additional land. Creatures and non-basic lands from call into tapped. When attacks, that's a creature, land, draw a card. Don't really have a good home for that. Yargle. Cameron+Deanna. I'm probably going to build this deck. I really like both of these characters, and this deck, the draw 2 mechanic is pretty cool. Whenever you draw your second card, you drain your opponents, and then you can sack a creature to do this effect. Meaning you can put a land from your hand on the battlefield tapped, and then if you control 8 or more lands, repeat the process. So shout out to Ojitai showing up again. Hexproof. When attacks, look at the top 3 cards and put one in your hand, or the rest of them out of your library. You turn one of those dragons to your hand. Here we're getting into some artifacts. We can kind of sprint through because we are at time. The once in future is meh. I'm not really huge on it. Okay, and I think we got to the end. Okay, we got the alt arts. We're not going to say dwell on these, but there are some really cool arts here. And so I really like the Rana here as well. The Arya is very cool. Or Ayara. So, and so this is really cool. We get to see some of the arts from the set's themes on these cards. So, but okay. With that, we are going to have to bounce. Should be back tomorrow with some more stuff. I think we're going to be back to Chia tomorrow. I think that's going to be our goal. We're going to try to get the platinum. We are very close. I think there's only one more thing that we have to do. But we are going to call that for the day so I can go and get ready for work. Let's go send a raid over to Bad Gamer Elite, who is playing Hi-Fi Rush. So with that, I hope everyone has a good one. Slayerfall, thank you for coming in and for the follow. Thank you, Trombone, Trilina, and just Gary for hanging out in chat. I will catch all of y'all in Discords. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your Tuesday, and I will catch you later. Bye.